Last week, we talked about the players with the most to gain in the first game of the preseason. Now, you got to prove something. The players with the most to prove. Plus, Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts checks in from joint practices.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the number one Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how, thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. This episode brought to you by our friends at Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Last week, we looked forward to the Jets preseason game with players who had the most to gain. Who can benefit from the game? I think we've moved past that in a lot of ways. If you want to argue that there are players on the fringes who could have another nice game and move them onto the roster bubble versus off of it, okay. But like, how much do you want to talk about fifth string linebackers? You know, there's a time and a place for that, and we'll do it, I think, a little bit closer to cut down day, but this is just a better way of framing the second game to me, because there's family night, there's the preseason game, there's practices. There are players who now have stuff on tape, and you have to prove it. And I'm going to start with Isaiah Simmons, because he picked off Daniel Jones and joined practices. There have been practices, the reports out of practices where he has looked really good. And then in the preseason game against the Jets, there are a couple of plays where he looks lost in space. And so, okay, which version is the real version? Because the version who is wildly out of position and gives up a huge play, that guy can't be on the field for a team that wants to contend for a Super Bowl. But the guy who's picking off Daniel Jones, that guy can be. So put a good game on tape. And okay, here you go. Here is that third linebacker job. Now, I don't know how much they want to experiment with someone like Tyron Hopper in that spot. I don't know if that would just be an Isaiah McDuffie role. Maybe there's a trickle down where, like, okay, if Tyron Hopper looks good, then maybe you feel better about moving Isaiah McDuffie. Christian Welch had a bunch of tackles last week. I didn't think he played as well as the tackle numbers indicated. I didn't think he played as well as he did in stretches last year in the preseason, but he's still a solid backup player. So Isaiah Simmons has got to show that he deserves to be a 30-35% of snaps type player, because Jeff Hafley, he demonstrated last year he will play way more base defense than Joe Barry did. And the whole point of having someone like Isaiah Simmons is that, yeah, he can be a base down linebacker, but because of his athleticism, because of his theoretical versatility, you don't feel like you're sacrificing coverage ability, except when it seems like you're sacrificing coverage ability. Like, I think he could go from being the starting Sam linebacker to not making this team, just given how the numbers work out. I don't think he's a roster lock at this point. He can become one with a good preseason game or something close to one. Then there's the receivers. Malik Heath had the bad drop in the preseason game. Brutal drop. Mecole Hardman drops. Joint practices, family nights, like drops. The bad fielding of punts inside your own 10. two really bad decisions for Mecole Hardman. I understand there's injuries. Jaden Reed out of the walking boot yesterday at joint practices. Romeo Doubs telling reporters he's going to be fine. Matt LaFleur saying he thought Romeo Doubs might practice on Thursday, but that he wasn't quite ready. And yeah, back injuries can be scary, but I mentioned this on socials. Like, it's not that he's got a disc problem or, something like that. This is, he fell weird and he's now probably sore and stiff. He seems to think it's not a big deal. Matt LaFleur seems to think it's not a big deal. So that means with Golden, you've got Romeo Doubs, Savion Williams hurt, Jaden Reed hurt, though it sounds like Jaden Reed's going to be back for week 1. We don't know what the situation is with Dontavian Wicks, but how many receivers can you roster? Christian Watson's coming back. It sounds like Christian Watson will be back sooner than later, even if he starts the season on PUP. And maybe they decide, hey, if we think he can be back by week 2, week 3, and there's all these injuries, like maybe you just have to put him on the roster. Maybe he just has to start the season. And you start the clock because you feel like you've got to get him out there. Malik Heath has a role on this team. Mecole Hardman has a role on this team. But they could just as easily not make it because the numbers say you just can't keep all of these receivers. So Bo Melton has changed positions and he is going to now beat out. I think he is certainly, in terms of like likelihood to make the roster, a way better bet than either of those two guys. So they may be fighting for 2 spots. They may be fighting for 1 spot on this team. And we saw last year and the year before, Malik Heath got real time in this offense. Mecole Hardman has spent real time in championship level offenses and was an impact player on championship level offenses, on championship level special teams. So it's not like these guys can't play, can't contribute. But they might just get pushed off, pushed down. The corners. And I'm thinking mostly of Kalen King. And the reason I'm thinking of Kalen King, with the most to prove here, is not because he had a bad game, but because with the corner situation as it is currently, Nate Hobbs hurt. Carrington Valentine, Keyshawn Nixon, not elite level players. Solid players, not elite level players on the outside. A.D. Mitchell had a route against Carrington Valentine where he sent Carrington Valentine into the shadow realm. I mean, just filth. Carrington Valentine didn't know what hit him. But Kalen King made some nice plays in the preseason game. But we're talking about late in that preseason game. It sounds like the Colts are going to play starters. It sounds like the Packers are not, or at least not going to play heavy starters. Maybe Keyshawn Nixon doesn't play. Maybe I would think Javon Bullard would play just given the Xavier McKinney injury, and you want to get him some reps at safety. Zane Anderson dealing with an injury. But Kalen King would suddenly have an opportunity to play a first-team offense. And so he's proving, hey, I'm an NFL corner, not a practice squad corner. That's a lot. Because that could be the difference between making this team and not making this team. So for the Packers, he is someone who I think they've liked the talent from the jump. But he's got to prove it. He's got to prove it. Now I think you could add Jacob Monk to this list. But I think they've let us know that they're a little underwhelmed with him. There's a reason why they moved him off the center. The reason he's been playing guard is because I just don't think they trust him to play center right now. So they're sending the signal there. And then we did hear Jordan Love say, look, if this had been the regular season, I would not have gotten this surgery. I would have just played through it. It would have been fine. But he's basically saying there's no chance I don't play week 1, barring new injuries. So this is, nothing to see here, at least for the moment, with Jordan Love. Let's get to our conversation with Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts, who was at joint practices. That's next on Locked On Packers. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why Monarch Money is here for you. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorizations of your spending, and finally, feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. Plus, managing your money with your partner is easier than ever. Get it all in one place. Transparency, goal planning, it's all there for you. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNFL. The Green Bay Packers traveled to Indianapolis for joint practices that head coach Matt LaFleur said they were treating like a game. Kind of hard to do that when Jordan Love is not playing and, 4 of the top 5 receivers are also not playing, but they did their best. Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts was there, and Jake joins me now. Jake, what were your first impressions of the Packers as we went through this process here?
So I don't think the Colts should have looked for retribution for that ugly loss last year, but they did look really bad in a game against Malik Willis and the Packers that Matt LaFleur called beautifully. I was just looking for some improvement, and I don't really think they got it. I'll be honest with you. So initially, the Packers, who, to my understanding from speaking to some of the Packers media, not a great pass rush. You would have thought they were full of Lawrence Taylor and Derek Thomas and all those guys against the Colts, at least in the first hunk of 11 on 11s.
Yeah.
This is going to mean a lot more to you, but I got number 7 had a run stop, 95, 55. These guys had run stops. Rashawn Gary had a play against Daniel Jones that probably would have rearranged his DNA if it was in a game. It would have been really bad. But these guys were just relentlessly after both Jones and Anthony Richardson with the first and second team units and offensive lines and everything. So I was really impressed initially by Green Bay's defensive front. And then, just a part of it became very apparent throughout the day that the Colts were just not clicking. As much as Green Bay was doing to them, the Colts were also just not performing as well as they could have been. Let's just say, last week or 2 weeks ago, they were in Baltimore for a joint practice in a preseason game, and they won the day in the practice. They looked much better than the Ravens did, or at least had the upper hand. They weren't, they didn't clean them out or anything, but this was the exact reverse. To my understanding, the other side of the ball, the Colts defense did some nice things against, Malik Willis and the Packers offense, as you would expect. I mean, Willis is the backup. But yeah, Colts offense versus Packers defense, there was definitely a winner.
Yeah. And so that was one of the big things that I was looking for. Okay. How is this Packers pass rush going to handle what is a pretty good offensive line for the Colts? I mean, is that spot's pretty settled for Indy? It sounded like Lucas Van Ness got after Bernard Raymond on a play that Rashawn Gary beat Braden Smith. Those are two really good football players. Bernard Raymond just got paid. This is a pretty good Colts offensive line here.
Yeah, so it's kind of a new look offensive line. They're having to replace some guys for the first time in a bit. Ryan Kelly and Will Fries went out the door together to Minnesota.
Yeah.
But I mean, the
Packers will see them twice this year.
Of course, yeah. But the Colts did draft Tanner Bortolini and Matt Gonzalez, expecting to have to replace a couple linemen within the next couple of years. And both those guys played a good bit last year. So they've pretty much got their starting 5 settled. Gonzalez at right guard has some issues in pass blocking. And today was another example of the fact that we may need to be a little bit worried about Braden Smith because Latu has gotten after him all summer. Rashawn Gary got him pretty good today. This is kind of having to force those of us that cover the Colts to kind of take a closer look at some of the things that may actually be issues. Because again, I know the Packers are always on the list of teams. If a pass rusher's on the trade block, the Packers are almost always, one of the top 2 or 3 teams to need to go get them. But you would not have been able to tell
Micah Parsons stuff. They might have a pretty big offer out there.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you would not have thought that today.
So what did you go in hoping to find out, whether it's hoping to see, whether it's progress or whatever, but like, what did you go in trying to find out?
Well, you're kind of the Colts won't give any bits to this, but you're trying to see if either of these quarterbacks will separate themselves, to see it, like what they might be thinking in this quarterback battle. Like with Anthony Richardson, he had a few games last year that were downright awful, and that Green Bay game was one of them. So you just kind of wanted some improvement in this one. He has shown some growth this summer, accepting more of the small stuff and doing it relatively better than he did before. Paying attention to some of the intricacies, like unfortunately, the Ravens game with that big play that injured his pinky. You want to pay more attention to those things, like the unblocked blitzer that's coming. So he's had a better camp, but you wanted to see him bounce back in a performance like this against a defense that has given him fits before. And then Daniel Jones, you maybe just want to see him be more than just a kind of a dink and dunk guy, throw some pizzazz on it. And Xavier McKinney, it sounded like, called him out for it at one point, commenting on how much he was just throwing short. Like once he threw a pass that was beyond 5 yards, McKinney kind of, laughed at him or, made a funny comment.
Oh my God. Why is that not surprising at all?
Well, last year, the Colts wrapped up the preseason with a joint practice against the Bengals. And one of the biggest things that come out of that was just how bad the Bengals secondary was dogging Richardson on the sidelines.
Oh, man.
So the Colts didn't really give their opponent much more to compliment them on.
I mean, you have to understand, Xavier McKinney last year in like late of the season, so like the 2/3 mark of the season, started complaining to the media that no one would throw deep on them. He was like, I'm like bored back here. No one is testing us.
Well, he intercepted everything.
Well, so this is why, and
Yeah.
You sort of understand it, but like he's just that kind of guy, and so it's not surprising. Like that's why I was laughing, because it's just not surprising that Xavier McKinney, who by the way did not practice because he's dealing with an injury, said whatever he said. Okay, so let's try and push this forward a little bit, because there is a preseason game to talk about. Based on what we saw and based on just like what you're looking for here, are there some matchups, some things that you think, if the Packer fan wants to get a good scout on what their team is going to be, what they're going to do, they go, okay, in these situations, the Colts, I want to see them this. And so that becomes a good tensile test then for the Packers against that thing.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I think the Colts are going to be very run centric. They're going to try to establish that because this is a quarterback battle that's not like pitting two guys who are so great they can only pick one. Like it's kind of a winner by default almost. So they're going to be a very run centric team. So my understanding is Green Bay's run defense is pretty good, but how's it going to look with the Colts? What I'm sure trying to establish it in this game, because the starters are going to play about a quarter. Daniel Jones is going to play a couple drives. Anthony, I think, is going to play like after Jones to the half, basically. So they're going to try and make this a real dress rehearsal, because I don't think they intend on doing much next week in Cincinnati. So I think this is going to be the Colts' really last hurrah of the summer. So run defense, how's it going to look? I also think when it comes to like third and shorts and things like that, they're going to probably try and master those short swing passes, those outlets to the running backs. So how is Green Bay's like perimeter defense? Like how quickly do they react to things like that? That'll be interesting. And then Tyler Warren, I think, is another one. They really want to establish a passing threat over the middle, because they just have not had anyone who is able to like win most matchups over the middle and really affect that area of the field. So whether it's A.D. Mitchell or Tyler Warren, that it's probably going to be where Xavier McKinney would have really feasted in this matchup. But how does that like intermediate to deep portion of the defense in the middle of the field, how is that going to come away for Green Bay's defense?
More with Jake Arthur from joint practices in Indy. That's next on Locked On Packers. This episode presented by Yahoo Fantasy. It's the best time of the year. NFL kickoff is almost here, and that means fantasy football season's back in full swing. And this year, Yahoo Fantasy is turning things up with Yahoo Fantasy experiences like never before. Me and Locked On Packers are playing Yahoo Fantasy, and you should be too, whether you're a first-timer or a veteran making your millionth league. When it comes to fantasy football, Yahoo is the deal. Yahoo is fantasy football. To celebrate 28 years of fantasy football greatness, Yahoo Fantasy is dropping 28 big new features over 28 days throughout August. To kick it off, they dropped Yahoo Fantasy Guillotine Leagues, a killer new way to play Yahoo Fantasy football on Yahoo, where the lowest scoring teams get eliminated each week until there's one team left standing. With the season around the corner, now's the time to get your league together and give this new mode a try. If you're more into the classics, you can stay in head-to-head private leagues or join a public league. Stay tuned for more killer announcements and start playing Yahoo Fantasy Football now at yahoofantasy.com/lockedonnfl. That sets up an interesting matchup here, Jake, because the Packers, at least Matt LaFleur said, they did not intend to play starters this week and that they would play them. They would play them next week. And so if the Colts are going to play starters, does that change the way Matt LaFleur approaches it? Does he want to have more of his guys out there, given that, okay, there's not that many guys, so should you just like play most of them anyway? Or is it going to be the same thing? And then does it become alarm bells if the Colts, for example, like can't stop Malik Willis and Matthew Golden and Malik Heath? Like that sets up a really interesting matchup here, because then it's like there's one team that's really trying to show something, which is kind of what happened last week, because the Jets with Aaron Glenn, this was we're showing we're different. And the Packers didn't match that intensity. So it will be interesting to see. I think we'll learn very quickly how the game will go, because the Packers, if it's a bunch of backups, guys trying to make the team, and then a team trying to establish itself, like that's a fascinating paradox, right?
I would think so. And then, also Lou Anarumo, I think we can get kind of a legitimate look at that defense, because obviously the preseason, you're going to be as vanilla as you can be, but like, we even saw it last year when Anarumo was in Cincinnati against the Colts. He outsmarted the Colts in a lot of different ways, just in preseason schematics. So I would imagine with this new roster, he's going to be trying to do some things. Like if this defense gets blown away or just like totally outmatched, I think it would be like a legitimate litmus test. And again, if it's Malik Willis and the backups out there, like I think that would be a little bit troubling. Because again, their starters are supposed to play at least about a quarter.
Well, then there's really just one question. Tarvarius Ward, Matthew Golden, let's see what it looks like, because the couple clips that I saw of Matthew Golden in one-on-ones, he beat Tarvarius Ward. He beat the other corner whose name is going to escape me. I apologize.
Maybe.
Yeah, I apologize to him, but like he looked awfully good. Golden made a couple plays against the Jets. Like he might be the only guy the Packers have to throw the ball to on Saturday. So if he still gets the ball, I think that will say something very, very complimentary about Matthew Golden.
No, I got a very brief glimpse at the Packers offense, because they're on two different fields, and I have to pay attention to what the quarterbacks are doing. But on the very last series of the last couple series of the day, everybody gets together on the same field, and it looked like Golden did have a step on Charvarius Ward on a go route, but Willis just overthrew him a little bit. So, I mean, Ward is a little better in the nitty gritty and the actual like cuts of the routes and everything. Like he's prone to be able to get beat on go routes by like more talented guys. Like A.D. Mitchell has been able to get him on some one-on-ones as well. But yeah, on go routes, I don't think the Colts really have anyone that would be able to stop Matthew Golden on a well-placed ball.
I saw A.D. Mitchell put Carrington Valentine in the dirt on a one-on-one.
Yeah, and so Mitchell has had just a red hot last couple weeks, and we're finally hopefully seeing him come out a little bit.
The Ravens couldn't cover him either, right?
No, he dominated that week. But he did a little bit of beacon with Keyshawn Nixon during some sessions of 11-on-11s that didn't go so well for the Colts. Now he was winning his matchups, but then right after they were jawing back and forth, Daniel Jones hit Mitchell over the middle on like this intermediate crosser. It bounced off of Mitchell's hands into Nixon's hands. So the guy you're jawing with the whole time just intercepted you off a play that you basically dropped. That's got to be awful. But no, I mean, Nixon got the upper hand there. Mitchell did have some really, really nice moments and kind of killed it during one-on-ones. But yeah, 11-on-11s wasn't his best time.
Is this the season for Shane Steichen? Like, are we already at make or break mode for him?
I think it's for everybody in the building for the most part. I mean, with with new-ish ownership coming in and, Carly Ursay-Gordon kind of wanting to establish what they need to be moving forward. I think everybody is under evaluation here. I don't know if there's any like mandates or anything like that, like playoffs or bust, but like I think the optics of this team have to look like they're ascending by the end of the year, whether that's Shane, Chris Ballard, Anthony Richardson. Like even without that, it feels like make or break for everybody anyways, just because this team hasn't made the playoffs in 4 years. There are still so many people around here who are used to being in the playoffs every year with Peyton Manning. And then Andrew Luck got them 3 straight division titles. They haven't won one since, but all the other 3 teams in the division have won it twice since the Colts won it the last time. So they're getting embarrassed yes, unfortunately. They're getting embarrassed in the AFC South. And there's a lot of people around here who are not used to that still. They're used to the glory days, and they want it back for sure.
Well, they should, right? I mean, that's their prerogative as a fan. All right, let's end here, Jake. I went in really wanting to see, okay, Jordan Morgan, Rasheed Walker, Anthony Belton, those guys against Leatu Lato, Kwity Paye. But like, is that as good a litmus test as I think it is? Because I'm wondering, because like those guys were high picks. We haven't seen them produce a ton. Their interior is the better unit here. Like, what kind of litmus test do you think? Like, if Jordan Morgan and Anthony Belton, let's say, hold up against this pass rush, how big a deal is that?
I think it's individuals in the pass rush that they have to perform well against, because as a unit, I'm just whelmed by the Colts pass rush. But like DeForest Buckner and Leatu Lato are, if you can stonewall them, you can really hang your hat on that. Lato has been, if you're given 5 outstanding player awards for this training camp, Lato gets one of those. He's shown a lot. He's shown a lot of growth this year. He has kind of beaten Braden Smith like a drum. I was saying the other day, I was like, I think Lato has more practices with multiple sacks this summer than he does practices without one at all. So he's had a really, really good summer. He honestly, like statistically, he only had 4 sacks last year, but was in the backfield a lot. Yeah. He just had a lot of missed tackles. Better than that. Yeah. It was kind of a razor thin margin between him having 4 sacks or 7 or 8, you know what I mean, as a rookie. So everyone around here kind of thinks the arrow's pointing up quite a bit on him. DeForest Buckner has been a top 10 defensive tackle in the NFL for his entire career. No doubt. Good at run defense, is going to get you 7-8 sacks every year from the interior. So if you could stop those guys, that's very much something to be proud of, I would imagine.
All right, Jake, appreciate the time, man. Enjoy the game on Saturday, and we'll talk to you soon.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thanks to Jake for joining the show. Always great to talk with him. We were actually talking offline yesterday about how he wanted to see this team respond for the Malik Willis stuff, and it turns out they did not do that particularly well. So I find that interesting. We are going to be live after the game, afternoon game. We'll be there. We'll be live for you after the game on Saturday. So go subscribe on YouTube, subscribe to my social media feed, subscribe to the podcast social media feed, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get podcasts so you can stay locked on Packers.